Hello, my name is Shannon Childers, and today I'll be looking at the North Carolina Board of Licensed Clinical Mental Health Counselors. Looking at several of the cases presented, a common behavior for a board to discipline a counselor was for inappropriate relationships and sexual misconduct. Personally, this is very sad and frustrating. This caused the clients to further their troubles and grief in regards to their counseling sessions, and one statement that a client had made was that she was going to need further therapy due to her therapist. All clients were hurt and now had further issues in regards to trust and was going to need a whole lot more help than what they needed prior to their sessions. I could not help but recall the scripture verse of 1 Peter 5:8 that the devil is like a roaring lion seeking whom to devour, and that we should be sober-minded in that fact, knowing that the devil is constantly trying to attack men and women, Christian counselors who are trying to do what God has called them to do, or to only fall into the traps and cause them to get in trouble. The themes that I witnessed being misused were non-maleficence. Several times the counselors took the power that they had received from the knowledge and education and training and used it to harm the client. This power influenced the client to believe that the actions that were taking place were part of their therapy. The clients left further hurt than what they were when they first began. Another principle that was being misused is the principle of veracity. Many of the clients trusted their counselors prior to their counseling session. They were trusted pillars of the community, some of them deacons and leaders of the church, only to be hurt by the actions causing mistrust and defying the principle of veracity. Having been hurt physically, mentally, and now going to a session to where this client has now lost trust in the whole process of counseling is just another testament of the misuse of veracity. The most recent case that was presented was one where the counselor was meeting troubled youth in a private practice. The counselor was canceling sessions and not showing up at all, causing the students and the families to feel more neglected and abandoned. The counselor was also displaying behaviors that raised competency and impairment concerns among the students. The counselor did have an undiagnosed medical condition, which she did give evidence to and asked for a reasonable accommodation from her employer. However, regardless of these actions, it constituted a violation of the American Counseling Code of Ethics in Section A1A, where the primary responsibility of respecting the dignity and promotion and welfare of the clients, A4A, avoiding harm to the clients, and C2D, which is to monitor the effectiveness and improve when necessary, and C2G, impairment. They also violated State Codes 90.340 and the protection of the public by violating the provisions of the article and rules adopted by the board, A7, A9, guilty of immoral, dishonorable, unprofessional, and unethical conduct in the current Code of Ethics of American Counseling Association, A9, and A11, which is also what my North Carolina board talks about in regards to impairment, and that is demonstrated inability to practice clinical mental health counseling with reasonable skills and safety by reason of illness, inebriation, misuse of drugs, narcotics, alcohol, chemicals, or any other substances that affects mental or physical functioning as a result of mental or physical condition. The outcome of the board of the discipline was that the client had to have a fitness for practice evaluation with another clinical professional approved by the respondent and the board, and this must be done face-to-face. The evaluator will submit their recommendations within 30 days, and if they see fit or need to take further action, they will. Within 6 months of the consent order, the respondent must complete continuing education coursework, which could be up to 6 hours in regards to care and wellness, and upon successful completion of the continuation education coursework, the respondent must submit a certification of completion provided by the continuing education sponsor to the board, and if the respondent does not do this, it could be more further action from the board, which could include the revocation, suspension, or further disciplinary actions. The American Counseling Code of Ethics states that in regards to impairment, counselors are to monitor themselves for signs of impairment from their own physical, mental, or emotional problems and refrain from offering or providing professional services when impaired. Counselors also to assist colleagues and supervisors in recognizing their own professional impairment and provide consultation and assistance when warranted with colleagues or supervisors showing signs of impairment and intervene as appropriate to prevent imminent harm to clients. As I stated earlier, what my North Carolina board states about impairment, it also states that they're in the process of trying to find programs and implement programs that will help counselors in the future in regards to impairment, but they currently do not have none, and we use grants to do so. Some of the questions that arise from this is in the future, how can I build up boundaries that are effective in staying healthy and avoiding potential hazards? Another question is whether or not compassion fatigue is an example of impairment, as noted by Rubino that a challenge to wellness is compassion fatigue between the counselor and the client. The disciplinary action presented from 2005 to the present year of 2022, although lengthy, one study showed that an average of 10 to 34% of complaints receive a full investigation. Which brings me to my last question of how does the board decide on what ethical issues of the American Council Association Code and the ethics of the North Carolina Board get investigated? What process do they use to signify or choose which of all these complaints that come get investigated? Thank you so much for watching and participating in this discussion.